The boot cowl is pretty much shaped up. There's a few little things left to do on it. Got to roll the edge around it all the way around there, just a little flange on the edge. And I'm going to put doubler plates underneath where that engine cowling support goes on there. Of course, I still have to put the engine cowling supports down on the bottom of the boot cowl. But I've got it close enough now that I can kind of start on the next big challenge, and that's doing the windshield. That's one of the things I was kind of dreading, looking forward to. I've got the windshield set up there, and it comes nowhere close to fitting. I knew there was going to be some fitting to it, but I had no idea it was going to be that much. I've put windshields in before. I put one in my 170 and helped with a couple other airplanes, and there was a little bit of fitting on those, but nothing like this was going to be. This windshield comes way back. This is where it's supposed to come to, is on this windshield post right here. There'll be it's cut off in here, and then there's a trim piece that goes over that. I've already got nut plates in there to hold them down. The same thing on the other side. Of course, the wing root here is not cut out for the full wing root. Sitting up there on top, it fits pretty close up there. Almost a little too narrow. I've got it slid back a quarter of an inch to a half an inch. It's pretty much even on both sides. Give me plenty of overhang on that, because that gets drilled out up there and screws put in it. That goes over the top of the skylight here. The skylight fits in underneath that, and then this goes over the top of that, and then there'll be a trim piece that goes across full width there of that. I knew this boot cowl fit was going to be a little bit difficult here because it's kind of flat. The normal Piper instrument panel is more curved, so it blends in a little bit more with this firewall, but this is a long ways from being close to fitting there. It wouldn't have even fit on that. Same thing over on this side. It bulges way out here, and up here on this top, this cutout for the wing root doesn't even come close to the pattern of the wing root. And again, this sticks way out. That'll have to be all cut off there, but it doesn't come down all the way here. So I marked this windshield on this window post on both sides, and I give myself plenty of room on it for mistakes. I took it down to the hanger on the bandsaw, and I cut off the excess there that was hanging way out here. So it makes it a little bit more manageable. I brought it back up here to the basement. I took a belt sander, the hand belt sander, and sanded down these rough edges a little bit. And then I had marked out some of the opening on this wing root. Well, I took the belt sander and kind of hogged that material out of there, which makes it better because it's now can fit flush against there, and it's not tight against these wires when they come out, or this fuel line where it comes out. I'd also kind of scribed a line here following the contour of this boot cowl, and I took the belt sander and just kind of roughed out some of that, and that also brings that back in and brings it a little closer to where it's going to go. So I'll go ahead and scribe this line. I'll just take the grease pencil and just keep holding it on here a little ways off. What I do ordinarily, scribe in a line, that I'd measure the distance between this cowling here and the bottom of the windshield, and then just come along and make a line equal to that all the way around. But I'm just going to take this a little bit at a time, not the full. Still working on the windshield. This thing doesn't even come close to fitting. It's a PA12 windshield. It's supposed to be wider, of course, than a PA18, but it's not quite wide enough here up on the top to come out the full width of this top deck up here. And then, of course, it didn't even come close to matching this wing root. It was cut way up in here. It had to be ground out to fit the wing root, and then it stuck way back here. Shoot almost a foot down here at this lower section. We took that down and cut it off on the bandsaw, got it in closer, and then ground out some of this wing root with a belt sander so that we could get clearance in here for these fuel lines and wires and stuff on both sides. And then, of course, it didn't follow the contour. It didn't come anywhere close to matching up to the boot cowl. And it wouldn't have even on a, if I'd had the contour of the boot cowl the same as a Cub with the rounded top or the rounded instrument panel and the lower instrument panel, this still wouldn't have come close. What I was doing was putting this up here and tying it down with some clamps in position up here on the fuselage, and then using my fingers and a grease pencil and just scribing a line here to match the contour of this boot cowl here, and I was grinding it down with the belt sander to match this contour. I was getting it close, so I went and got these trim pieces here, this windshield mounting trim, and decided to check it out and see how it fit on there. And as you can see, I almost ground too far in here. Well, anyway, I've got it pretty close, matched up. But again, this thing doesn't cut, it cuts off here before it comes down below the gap between the instrument panel and this fuselage here. That'll be covered up with this trim piece, and the one, there's another piece that overlies this one. They sandwich together and sandwich that windshield together. I had to grind a little bit off of here to match this contour up a little better. Same on the other side. This where I overground, matching this contour on the boot cowl, that'll fit down in between these trim pieces here. It'll be sandwiched in there, so that'll be okay. Well, it's still hard fitting. It still doesn't want to fit in there right. It's it's a little bit wide back here, and it pooches up here when it's bent. It bows up here on the front, but we'll make it work. I got a little better idea what I'm doing now. Thankfully I didn't grind too much off before I went and got these pieces to try it. So now we've got to figure out how to fasten this thing down. The other piece lays over the top of that and leaves a little bit of a gap in between for the windshield, and then it has another, this piece kind of got a little dog leg in it. It's flat here, flanges up. And of course there's going to be a compound curves as it goes around here, so we're going to have to kind of fit it around. I think this is aluminum, so it should be able to bend. May have to get the metal shrinker out and shrink some of this on some of these curves. Getting these two to match up. The one has got to overlay this inside one and then drill down through them and then fasten them to the boot cowl. I think I've got it laid out there now to where it'll work. Again, you can see here how this windshield was cut, come up higher than it should have here. It doesn't. It should match up with this window, that this triangular window, this front window that goes in this channel right here. It should mate up to that. It's got a big gap right here underneath where the instrument panel and the wing post meet. Well, getting this trim piece fitted in here for the windshield, this backup piece. Wasn't sure I was going to be able to get it to fit in there. It's kind of a convoluted shape with this flat instrument panel here and going around these curves and stuff like that. But I'm able to get it in there to where it's starting to fit in there pretty good. I finally got to use my shrinker and my stretcher that I bought a few years ago at Harbor Freight. But I haven't really used it for anything productive since I got them. I got them pretty much specifically for working on this, and then I also figured I could use them for working on some of my old trucks and cars and stuff when I get everything else done that I need to get done, so I can work on those, which will probably be in the next lifetime. But this is a piece of 032 2024 T3. It was a scrap piece trimmed off of these other pieces here when I put these boot cowls and stuff together. And I took it, cut off the ends of it, shorten it up, and then bent it in almost a 90, not quite a 90 in the brake. And then took it on the shrinker, and we made this shape. 2024, especially T3, is not an ideal material to work. It's pretty hard anyway and brittle, and it work hardens pretty fast. And that's what this did. You see where there's some splits in it here where I shrunk it and over shrunk it. So I didn't try to temper it, heat treat it, anneal it, or anything like that. I was just playing with it just to get the feel of it. What it does is the The shrinker has 4 jaws in there, serrated jaws, and the top and the bottom ones are offset a little bit, and we push down on the handle, it pushes down on those jaws and they bite into the metal, and then they squeeze together. It's small increments, so that squeezes the metal together and shrinks it up. A stretcher works the same way but opposite. It has 4 jaws, serrated jaws in there. They're close together, and when you squeeze the jaws they pull apart, which stretches the metal and causes it to grow, elongate. Now this was made by shrinking. We made a nice little curve there. Now if that was made in a softer aluminum and I took the time to anneal it and everything, it would work out to a pretty nice little piece. Or if it was in light gauge steel, it would make a nice corner for a window or something like that. As it is, it's just junk. This is what I was practicing for, this piece right here. As you put it around here, like going up here on the flat, trying to flatten this out and get it down, it was puckering, it was shrinking. So the first thing I did was shrink this lower little flange here. And then, believe it or not, you'd think this down here, going around this corner down here, would need to be stretched, but it needed to be shrunk right here. And then I took it and stretched it here where it goes around this, the radius of this curve right here. Stretched it there. I did that on both sides in almost exactly the same places. I did a little shrinking on the other side here, on the other side, and then stretched it going over this little corner here. And that makes it form up pretty good. I can hand form the rest of that. I was getting a little puckering back here in the middle on this back flange, this back piece. Well, I took it down and shrunk it a little bit, and I think that's going to be pretty good. This windshield still doesn't fit where the darn pooches out here, and it pooches out here. Now it's better than it was, because when I first started it had about a 2.5 or 3 inch gap up here in the front, and then came down here on this edge and touched here, and then flared way out here. Anyway, I'm not very happy with the way that windshield's fitting, but it's what I got. This is a windshield for a PA-12, Piper PA-12, in the later model with the square top, and that's supposed to fit this, but it doesn't. It's too narrow at the top. It doesn't span all the way outside of the rib line. It's a 1/4 inch or more inside of the rib there on the top. It sticks way out above the rib line as the rib comes out here on that tube that comes out to form that rib form there. It sticks way up there. I've got it held down with a clamp, but you take the clamp off and that springs way up. I thought this fuselage was supposed to match pretty close to a PA-12, but it must not. So this thing doesn't come anywhere. It doesn't fit up very good. You'd think as many fuselages of these as they make nowadays, they would have a windshield made to fit it. I know it's not going to have one to fit perfectly because everybody makes a different boot cowl. They do different things with the instrument panel and stuff like that, but at least you could get it closer than what this thing is. Not really sure exactly how to go about this. Backcountry Supercubs has a pretty good video out on installing a windshield on one of their kits, but it's one of their kits and it uses a standard PA-18 windshield, and it fits up pretty good, and I think this backing plates and stuff fit up pretty good on it. It's got, of course, got more rounded boot cowl, but what they do is they laid the windshield out, made a mark all the way around the windshield, and took the windshield off and measured out 1/4 inch from the windshield and put this backer piece on there, and then they drilled it 3/32 or number 40 and riveted in with pop rivets, and then fitted the other piece on top of that inside with the windshield sandwich in it, and drilled it out for the nut plates. And then they had to took it off, then they had to drill the rivets out for this back piece, and then sandwich them all together afterwards. So not sure I like that, putting any more holes in this boot cowl than you have to, even though they're going to be back behind where these pieces are. They still get water especially up here where it rains and everything as much as it does. You get water forced in underneath there, and it would go down those holes. There would be nothing in those holes to stop it.